What's up everybody, Sean here, Shock Surplus. I'm the founder of Shock Surplus. All I've been doing for the past 8, 9, 10 years is putting all of these shocks, coilovers on my own vehicles, on my staff's vehicles. We've just been roundtabling, feel how they all feel. Everyone drives their own vehicles, so we really understand these shocks and coilovers from an experience standpoint. We're not just reading product descriptions to try and understand them. We got no brand loyalty. We got Rancho quick lifts here, Fox 2.0s, Bilstein 5100s, Eibach Pro trucks, and KYB's Truck Plus leveling kits here. So these are all coilovers for the front of independent front suspension vehicles, but the behaviors of the shocks are still consistent on a normal shock for like the rear of a vehicle or the front of a Jeep Wrangler or Ram heavy duty, Ford Super Duty. We know those use shocks by themselves, but the behaviors built into the tune of these shocks is still consistent, whether it's a coilover or a normal shock. So I'm just going to go over this in terms of front leveling kit kind of frame of mind. If you have got a Silverado, a Tahoe, a Tacoma, a 4Runner, an F-150, a Colorado, any of these light duty trucks with independent front suspension that run front coil springs on a shock. Something similar, so Bilstein is really the closest illustration of what I mean by how the front of your vehicle is set up. So you got the shock, you got the coil spring collar that sits on the shock, and then the spring sits on top of that. And this is a factory top mount, very familiar to a lot of you. So this is how most of these late model half-ton trucks or light duty trucks are set up. Now you can convert them to what's typically kind of known as a coilover. Coilovers are kind of using standardized springs, so the springs on this Eibach setup and this Fox 2.0 setup are kind of standardized. You might consider them, for instance, this Eibach coilover, I believe this is for a Bronco. It has a 16-inch by 3-inch by 450-pound spring on it. Those details don't really matter in terms of this, but what the beauty is of coilover systems like this Eibach Pro truck, this Fox 2.0, you can change out the coil springs because the spring dimensions have become standardized in this industry. These Bilstein 5100s have their own set of springs from Old Man Emu, from Eibach, from Bilstein themselves. Dobinsons, or you can have many different spring options for the front of your Tacoma or your 4Runner, Land Cruiser, Tundra that you're able to put on here to either adapt to different vehicle weights or different ride heights to fit larger wheels and tires. Something like the KYB Truck Plus, this is a much newer product as we are here in 2023, but this one specifically is for a 14 to 18 Chevy Silverado. It is using KYB's gas adjust monotube shock as the base damper, and then they're basically using the normal kind of factory spring, and they achieve their leveling through a bottom mount spacer to achieve that additional ride height of about an inch and a half. Whereas someone like Eibach or Fox will use a threaded body to be able to adjust this coil spring collar. By doing so, preloads this spring, and as you preload the spring, whether it's on this Eibach or on this Bilstein or on this Fox product, preloading the spring means the weight of that front of the vehicle settles less on that spring, and as it settles less on the spring because it's preloaded, that gives you the additional ride height. So you can reduce the ride height, lift the ride height by more or less preload in this spring. Bilstein achieves this through circlip grooves. The circlip grooves basically hold the circlip, and then the coil spring collar sits on that circlip. So not as much adjustability as a threaded body like the Eibach or the Fox, but it still gets it done. The Bilstein 5100 was, don't quote me, but pretty much the original ride height adjustable shock. And they've had these since the early 2000s. I think maybe even RCD Suspension had a threaded body on a Bilstein manufactured shock to give added ride height to the first gen Tacomas. Don't quote me on all that, but they've been around for a long time, and the rest of the market kind of followed suit on adjustable ride height shocks. Fox 2.0 here is kind of the race product out of comparing to the rest of these. This is an aluminum body shock, adjustable height as well, similar to the Eibach, so where you can adjust this threaded body, preload the coil spring for more ride height. These usually come about 2 inches of lift out of the box, obviously dependent on application. And sometimes Fox is not correct in that height designation. For instance, on the 14 and 18 Chevy Silverados, sometimes they'll say 1.5 inches or 1.75 inches, but depending on your cab size, depending on your engine weight and engine size, you may get 3 inches of lift out of the box instead of 1.5 or 2 inches. So good thing you can make the adjustment on this. The only con to an aluminum body out of the Fox 2.0, it's not advised to make adjustments to the preload while the shock is on the vehicle, because obviously this whole thing is under immense tension. And if you try to make the adjustment on this coil spring collar, these aluminum threads can easily get damaged while making the adjustment while under tension. Something like the Eibach, coilover can make adjustments while on the vehicle because these threads are steel, so they can stand up to a little bit more tension, a little bit more abuse. You still have to relieve as much pressure off this coilover as possible by drooping out that suspension before you make the adjustment, but a lot easier, not ill-advised like the Fox. And then we have Rancho's quick lift unit here as well. These are extremely popular. We sell a lot of them. These are running on Rancho's RS9000 tri-tube shock, and these are adjustable between very soft, very firm compression. Rancho says this also adjusts rebound because basically a spring that adjusts the port opening in the base valve here. So there's a piston inside that pushes oil through a base valve into the outer tube, and this knob is controlling the flow restriction of that oil to the outside tube. What all that means is basically, do you want it really soft or really firm on the pavement? Are you towing and you want it a little bit firmer? That's how you can adjust the behaviors with this knob. Not dunking on Rancho, but sometimes over the life of this shock, these settings seem to wane in effectiveness of the shock, and that's from experience running these shocks on a few of our own vehicles as well. I've ran these on my own Ram 2500, we ran these on the Silverado 1500, I've ran them on my buddy's Jeep Wrangler TJ, so they work really well towards the beginning, first 5,000–10,000 miles, but we do notice their effectiveness kind of taper off as they gain more miles. One of the other things that we've seen, that we've had feedback on the Rancho Quick Lift, is these do provide good ride height gain, 2.5 inches, 3 inches, sometimes 2 inches most of the time, but it's really hit or miss on the ride quality in the front. It's hard to deduce the cause of it, but some customers are very happy with their ride after installing these. Some customers complain that it feels like there is not a shock in there. And sometimes what happens in a twin tube or a tri-tube shock like this is that the rebound in these shocks are notoriously, I would just call it inadequate when you compare it to a Bilstein or a Fox, which we've compared directly on our own Silverado and our Ram. And so what that means is, as compression occurs on a speed bump or a driveway or a hard off-road obstacle, the whole system compresses and then obviously rebounds. This RS9000 shock is missing adequate rebound, so that rebound motion feels very harsh sometimes. So a very good budget option for a single shock tower assembly to level out your vehicle and to have some adjustments. But if you're going to be driving aggressively, or your roads in where you live on your commute are not the best, and there's a lot of holes and a lot of bumps, this might not be the best option for you. We sell a ton of these, so I don't want to dunk on Rancho, and we're not brand loyal, but we want to pass along the feedback that A, we've tested ourselves, and also B, the thousands of feedback comments we get on all of these products from our website, shocksurplus.com. Let's get into the ride quality of all of these. If you're just tuning in right now, we're just going to be going over the ride quality between KYB, Eibach, Bilstein, Fox, and Rancho. We'll start with what most people know best here, which is the Bilstein. It's a monotube digressive shock, and if you're not familiar with digressive shocks, linear shocks, digressive shocks means basically restrictive oil flow. So between digressive and linear shocks, if you've heard those terms, we're talking about the pistons inside these shocks. This is a digressive piston, and if you notice, you can't really see through this piston. Obviously you can see through that middle hole, but that's not what I'm talking about. There are ports in there, but this is a linear piston out of a Rancho shock, but you can see through the ports here. So these are the base level behaviors behind these shock tunings. Bilstein is notorious for being a digressive shock, and basically what that means is there's a lot of resistance in the beginning ranges of motion. In the middle ride zone, call it pavement ride zone, there's a lot of resistance to this piston, and what that does is provides superior handling, because as the body rolls, nosedive, brake, rear squat while towing, all these little characteristics on pavement, easy forest trails, we call that the ride zone. Bilstein provides superior handling because of the digressive piston. They'll soften up the faster you go, but these are not the softest shock on the block when you're considering if you're looking for max ride comfort on the street for your commute. So we still like the Bilstein product a lot though. Lasts a very long time, 100,000 miles usually pretty easily. They do soften up the faster you go off-road, but really confidence inspiring, but also not the most comfortable if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for a Cadillac ride, Bilstein probably isn't your best option. If you're looking for a Cadillac ride, the Fox 2.0 is going to be probably one of the best bets on this table right here, or the Rancho 9000s. The Fox 2.0 is using a linear piston. This isn't the exact linear piston in this Fox 2.0, but linear, digressive. We're just talking kind of generalities here. Over that same pavement ride zone, daily driven ride zone comfort, Fox is really comfortable there. They don't sacrifice too much handling. Bilstein is definitely going to handle much better than Fox. Out of all of our tests and all of our customers that we've ran both of these shocks head to head, people have preferred Bilstein for their tow rigs, along with our own staff preferring Bilstein for their towing rigs. But county roads, rocky trails, gravel roads, Forest Service stuff, Fox is going to be the clear winner there in terms of bump compliance, eating up all the bumps, potholes, speed bumps. Fox does a really good job of eating those up and maintaining comfort in the cab of your vehicle. Eibach has landed in between Bilstein and Fox, so not too firm, not too soft, good handling. It's really the best of both worlds between Bilstein and Fox, and I think they almost did that on purpose, because Bilstein and Fox have both been on the market for 10, 15 years now. Eibach, while they've been around for 20, 30, 40 years in the car space, they're just kind of being a little bit more aggressive now in the truck space, and so they've kind of arrived with a great product. We are currently running these on 3 of our vehicles after those vehicles have had Bilstein and Fox on them. So all of them kind of feel the same way, where this is a really good in-between solution between Bilstein's maybe harsh daily driven performance and then Fox's really comfortable daily driven performance. Eibach has landed right in the middle. All 3 of these shocks can handle pretty decent speed off-road. They're all really tuned for mid-speed support, meaning 15, 20 miles an hour through the rocky trails. The terrain doesn't get too gnarly, but your suspension is moving. All 3 of these shocks are going to feel very similar in that case. Bilstein will still feel a little bit firmer. Fox is going to be the most comfortable, and then Eibach is just going to be just a great balance between the two. You can't really go wrong with either of these options, but we will say that some people are turned off by the small bump compliance of the Bilstein. And then we get KYB's Truck Plus here. And these are really, really new to the market, and which is why we're also doing this video update, because these weren't out the last time when we recorded our first version back in 2019 or 2018. So these guys achieve leveling on the front of the IFS vehicles, either through a spacer on top, a spacer on the bottom for the mount, or a combination of both. On the GMs, the reason why they don't run a spacer on the top is because it increases the possibility of contact with the upper control arm versus running a spacer at the bottom. We won't get into the technicality of that, but ride quality wise, these ride very similar to, not as firm as a Bilstein. It really depends on if you get the gas adjust or if you get the Monomax. The red Monomax ride much closer to a Bilstein, whereas these gas adjust monotube shocks ride a lot closer to an Eibach, or even to stock. It's a little bit firmer than stock, which is why we like to categorize it closer to Eibach. So Fox feels very similar to ride comfort wise to a late model Chevy truck or late model Ford truck, but where it excels there is the rebound damping. So there's not that heaving, there's not that sloppy kind of body roll that you get when you go up driveways and bumps. Fox, Bilstein, Eibach all have really good rebound properties in their shock to prevent that heaving sloppiness because of the way the rebound is tuned in a monotube shock. A lot of the shocks coming from factory are all twin tube shocks. Twin tube shocks are just notorious for having poor rebounding on all of these late model trucks because the manufacturers are trying to give that Cadillac ride quality off the lot, and they're not really tuning the shocks to do truck stuff. And so that's why you see a lot of sloppy, boaty behavior. Some people like that. Don't get me wrong. Some people like the kind of the boaty, very soft feel on the daily drive and the commute. But if you start doing any truck related stuff, it starts just getting sloppy manners, a lot of heaving left and right, a lot of body roll, a lot of nosedive. I'm not saying that's wrong, but that's why we're kind of explaining all these different shock types to give you a really good idea about behavior. Another thing we kind of wanted to go over was maybe warranties. Really easy to get warranty replacements on KYB, Eibach, Bilstein, Rancho. These are all mass products. We sell a ton of them, so it's never ever a problem to get a warranty replacement. I would say Fox is about the only shock that's going to give maybe issues on a warranty because they like dealing with the customer directly. If that is the case, and if you bought Fox from us and you're having problems with warranty, just come directly to us. We're just going to replace it for you. If we can't replace it for you immediately through our extended warranty programs or through Fox's own 1-year warranty, then we can actually rebuild this shock itself. We rebuild Fox 2.0s all the time. We're servicing shocks here as well. So that is one of the benefits of buying kind of a high performance product that can be serviced. You're basically buying longevity. You can retune the shock closer to your own driving behavior. New oils, new seals, clean it all up, and it'd be brand new for you. So warranty wise, they all have got pretty solid warranties. Eibach's got basically a 1,000,000-mile warranty. You can't go wrong with that. Bilstein's got a limited lifetime warranty. They always stand behind their stuff there. We usually have no problems on warranties on any of these. I would say that this Bilstein gets the longest life though. Easily 100,000 miles out of these shocks if you don't abuse them. Eibach is going to be right there neck and neck. In terms of materials, that are near identical. Internals, their wiper seals, shaft sizes, shaft hardnesses, they're all very, very similar. Eibach is extremely smart. They know what the standard is in the truck industry. So both Bilstein, Eibach, easily up to 100,000 miles on your vehicle. The KYB can't say the same. Usually it feels like customers, based on feedback, are replacing these easily 50,000, 60,000 miles. And a note for the future, KYB, whether you're running their black XLG or their gas adjust, their gray gas adjust, or their red Monomax, those aren't really qualitative differences. It's really ride control differences. The black XLGs are as close to factory ride quality. The gray gas adjust are a little bit firmer for a little bit of a more sporty feel. And then the Monomax reds are meant for trucks, truck duty and kind of off-road performance. So they're gonna be the firmest. Rancho shocks, it really depends on who you talk to, on how long these last. We've replaced our Rancho shocks in our own vehicles under 20,000 miles, even when running an aftermarket RS 9000 like this. It's back to, if you like the soft Cadillac ride, you're not doing too many truck things, you're not doing too much off-road performance, these shocks will last you probably a pretty long time. But if you are doing more heavy-duty stuff, towing, requiring a lot out of your vehicle, off-road a lot, and you feel like it's just a little bit too much body roll and too much unwanted behavior, then the shocks just aren't performing for you, and there's definitely a lot of other options. Fox recommends servicing these shocks by 50,000 miles. If that's, and that's probably between a $300 and a $400 ticket as well, to keep the shocks performing as just like new. So you aren't going to get too many miles out of the Fox without servicing. Yeah, they'll continue working. They aren't going to just fail completely, but they'll get squishier over time the longer that you don't service them. I hope we answered all your guys' questions. We've got a website that tailors specifically to budgets, drive type uses, overlanding, street and track, daily driven comfort, towing and hauling, tons of different brands available there. We like to say we're not trying to tell you what to run, we're just here to help you figure out what to run on your own vehicles. So thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you on the trail.